Yes, yes, we are on the air everywhere. The blowtorch of weather. WeatherBrains, episode number 539. This is the pre-show for May 16th, 2016. This is the magical time of the program where we occasionally share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and say outrageous things. And this week, the whole crew is abandoned ship, except for me and you, Bill. We're it. Maybe Auburn.
I guess I made them mad or something, James. I'm not sure.
So Brian sent this odd note. I'm out. No, Brother Brains 101. I'm out. So somebody made him mad. He was in I saw him Friday, and he was in a good mood. So he's out. Kevin is sick. He's out. Rick Smith, I believe his daughter has a recital or something important, so he is out. Dr. John is on a sabbatical leave. He is out. So here comes Aubrey. We are saved. We're saved by the meteorologist from Virginia. Because Bill, me and you, brother, nothing personal, but we're nothing to look at here. I mean,
I was going to say, we got a great guest tonight, but I don't know if we could carry this off or not, James.
No, if Aubrey's here, we're going to be okay. The problem is we're seeing that glamour shot, but we're not seeing her video.
Can you guys hear me?
Hear you good. We just don't see you.
Yeah, sometimes the camera, it's a little finicky. So sometimes all I have to do is like go into the camera, click a couple things, and then it's good.
There you go. Turn here. Hang on here. We have a song for that.
Have you tried turning it off and on again? Off and on again. Off and on again. Have you tried turning it off and on again? That normally does the trick.
It does. Actually, I think I have to pull out the USB, wait 5 seconds, and go plug it back in.
There you go. So we give tech advice on this show. So there you go.
This Week in Tech.
This Week in Tech, This Week in... we have the domain name, thisweekinweather.com. It's one of the 87
do something with it, James.
Gazillion email addresses we've registered over the years. No, Leo Laporte, all his shows, This Week in Tech, This Week in Google, This Week in something. So we have This Week in Weather. I was hoping Leo would buy our program for $10 million. But that check has yet to come in. He's having to move his studios from Petaluma, from like the middle of town, to some other place. You're there, Aubrey. It worked.
See, all I did was unplug the USB, wait 5 seconds, and then plug it back in.
It worked.
That's all I did.
Turning it off and on again.
So why is Leo having to move, James?
Apparently, he lost his lease. They're going to put a brewery in there, make some beer. So I thought
that was a big deal when they created that place they're in now, right?
Yeah, I think they called it the Brick House. And I don't know, but I think they're moving in August. I need to go see him one day. Take a little San Francisco journey.
Yeah, they would see you. I emailed them when I was out there, and they were like, "Yeah, whatever."
Really?
Yeah, I was like, they were like, we have a waiting list like a mile long to just to attend the show.
They apparently don't know that you're the WeatherBrains guest booking officer. Goodness, I mean, if they knew that, they would welcome you with open arms and cast out the little people to the sidewalk. So.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So Aubrey, it's just us.
All right.
I mean, this is it. What you got? And this is going to be a lean, mean show, and this could be a good one. I feel something good going on here.
Maybe I should call in sick and say I can't do the show tonight.
No. You can't. It's too late to run. That window is closed.
No, not our show. The news.
Yeah. Do that, dude.
No, tell them you've got some high-level television media to take care of here.
Yeah, if we lose the transatlantic cable here, I'll be out, and then James, it's you and Aubrey.
Yeah, Bill is on some remote island in the Caribbean with a moose, and that's about it. So,
Just don't put the moose in the back seat of your car.
Yeah, no, that got some television time today. Wow. Baby bison in the back of a car.
Who does that?
Yeah, that's almost had a deer. Go search YouTube. Just search James Spann deer, and we had one of these like little bitty newborn deer that they were just walking, and it decided I was its dad. And
did it try to nurse you?
well, it wanted to go and it would have gone right inside the house. I mean, it just followed me around, and I tried to sneak away, and it just and you know, if you like get your hands on those things, the mom will abandon them. And so somehow my wife was able to get it back out in the woods, but
Wow.
goodness, no. But it is so tempting, you know, like these things. The parking lot is a zoo out here. You know, we have 3 cats that live here, and they've become just domestic. We have probably 5 raccoons that we feed back here, and those things scare me to death. I mean, you know, those things probably have rabies.
Yeah.
and they you know, I'll be down there feeding those cats, and I'll think a cat's rubbing up against me. I'll look down, it's a stinking raccoon, because they eat the dry cat food. And then we have a red fox that like hangs out back here. It is a bizarre, and we're not really, you know, out in the country here. I mean, this is in the suburbs. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But
I'm going to share a picture that I got today. Well, where they sent it in through, but this is a viewer picture of our weather today. Can you see it?
yes.
Wow.
So that was from Carolyn Rothwell. She sent the kitty in the sunshine.
I like it. I like it.
Have you guys had to do this whole legal, we can't pull any pictures from YouTube or social media and Facebook anymore, so you have to get permission from each individual?
No, boy, that's going to ruin my day when that happens. half my content is from Twitter and Facebook.
Basically, either we have to email them a consent form that they send back to us with their typed signature, or what I just do is through our website, there's like a legal, I don't know what I did there, but there's a legal thing on the website where you upload pictures to, and basically you check the box that says you're giving us the right to use it.
So what do you do if you got a tornado? Let's say you got a picture of a tornado, and you're on the air in live tornado coverage.
Nope.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Nope.
James, you need to like run the show back 2 minutes and erase this part because we didn't hear it.
Yep.
Well, I don't care, man. That's crazy. I mean, this
is company-wide. And
life or death emergency. I don't care. They can fire me. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it implemented within other stations within the next. It's because of so many lawsuits.
Now, I will say this. I do see, like, the TV station on their account, like, you know, TV station, if they use a picture, they will ask, you know, hey, we need your permission to run this on all platforms. But there's no form. They just ask, and the person says yes.
Well, and that's basically why is more so for news, but weather has to abide by the same rules.
Wow. That's my whole 4 o'clock newscast back there is images from social media. Hey, Jeffrey, can you hear us? I'm sorry, I didn't even see who you were.
He's muted, so Jeff, if you can unmute.
Yes, I can hear you.
There we go.
All right, can you see me okay?
Yep, you look great.
All right, good. All right.
Look good, sound good. Wow.
How are y'all doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for coming on the show. Sorry, we're kind of lean here. Rick Smith and Norman, his daughter has got a recital, and a lot of the other folks are either ill or out for some reason. So you're stuck with the 3 of us. But
that's
we'll promise to be nice.
All right.
We'll
make a good time of it.
I may have to restart this computer. I got this gray. All of a sudden, my screen is gray, and I can't see anything. And
can you see us?
I cannot see you. I have a gray screen, and Control-Alt-Delete.
Oh, goodbye, Aubrey.
Yeah, she's gone.
Control-Alt, goodbye, Aubrey.
The last words we heard her say were Control-Alt-Delete. No, she's back.
I don't know.
Your video looks clean. I mean, you look good.
Yeah, I can't see anything. I don't know what I hit or did, or I could just sit here and not watch, and then you can just mute me.
Or I could play this song.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
But I don't know what the issue is. I mean, I don't know.
Your audio and video is just fine. I had no idea. Maybe it's time for. So, Jeff, we got to wait on the television. We join a TV station here at the bottom of the hour, so we're about it's like 30 seconds away. And as soon as we get the TV folks online, we will start the show. I just got a private message. Are you coming to the high school reunion? No. I don't do high school reunions. I mean, I'm not anti-social, but like I didn't know anybody in high school. I knew probably 5 people, and I still know them today and see them all the time. So, I guess, and of course, I graduated back in 1865 during the Civil War. So, we are getting a little old here. So, hello, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to our television audience. You have now joined us for the madness known as WeatherBrains. The gang. What gang we have, we are all here. So let's get this thing started. We can crank her up now that we're on the television side. We're going to turn that recorder on and this recorder on. And producer JP is going to do the show notes tonight since Brian's out. So here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 539 for May 16th, 2016. Weekly show all about weather. And this is a busy time of the year. May is very chaotic in that, number one, we have tornadoes typically that crank up not only in Dixie Alley, but traditional Tornado Alley, hurricane prep, school ending. So many things are going on here. And accordingly, we have a lot of our folks that are out tonight. Now, Brian Peters sent a rather terse note. He just said, I'm out and there's no WeatherBrains 101. But I think Bill made him mad. Somebody clearly has upset the colonel. So Brian is out. We have Rick Smith. So this is cool. We got a retired WCM and an active WCM. Rick, who's in Norman, he is out with a family little event you can't miss tonight. Dr. John is on a sabbatical. We think Dr. John is on some island. Bill, is he on your island?
If he's on an island, he's not on mine tonight. I've got Bermuda covered, so I'm not sure what island he's on.
Yeah, so Dr. John's going to sit out a few weeks. He'll be back. Many of you know Dr. John has a business, and sometimes business actually takes precedence here, believe it or not, over WeatherBrains, but he'll be back in a few weeks. Kevin is sick, so he is out. Nate is dealing with child issues. He's out. Aubrey was on here, but she had some equipment issues, and we're getting Aubrey. Can you hear us now? No. Now we can see your picture down there. So, but you know what, Bill? Me and you, we're going to take this show to the top. This is going to have more downloads than any of the 538 prior episodes. Don't you think? Bill Murray is actually in Bermuda.
Yeah, James, I enjoyed breakfast yesterday. I had the typical Bermudan breakfast. I thought you would really appreciate it. It was boiled potatoes, cod, avocados, banana, and boiled eggs covered in onions.
Oh, boy, I'm going to... No. I'll take some scrambled eggs and bacon and grits, and I'm good. I don't do cod for breakfast. So now Bill is out in... So you're out there in paradise, and all we see behind you is some crummy curtain in a hotel room. I mean, are there any windows in there?
Yeah, there's one behind these curtains, but it's just dark now. So it's 10:30 here. This is pretty late.
That's true.
That's my bedtime.
All right, you're over there in the middle of the pond. But Bill, let's roll with it. Bring in our guest. We got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to the show for several weeks, James, because it's a fascinating set of topics and one of my favorite places in the world. That's Mobile, Alabama. But tonight's guest WeatherBrain is the meteorologist in charge at the National Weather Service in Mobile, Jeff Medlin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Appreciate it.
Well, now, Jeff, you used to be the Sioux at Mobile. Now you're the MIC. Talk about how you got into weather and how your career unfolded.
Sure. I like to go all the way back, like many weather geeks, to my childhood. It was the only thing I ever considered after being born and realizing what weather was. And I actually credit my grandmother for getting me into weather. I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, and she lived about 15 miles west of me. And she was always on the cold side of the coastal front when the nor'easters would come up in the 70s. And we would call one another in the late night hours. Has it changed over to sleet yet? Has it changed over to snow? And so forth. And that fascination just grew from there. And I guess by the time I was 8 or 9, lived really close to the airport, made my mom and dad take me over to the National Weather Service office and rode off to NOAA, and here I am many years later. I love it. I'm very passionate about it. I started my career basically after graduation in Cincinnati, Ohio, then Charleston, West Virginia, followed by Norman, Oklahoma, and then Mobile as the original Sioux in 1994, where I've been ever since. And here we get the gambit of all weather.
Yes, you do. There's no question about that. And it's interesting to me, Jeff, that Mobile and Pensacola used to have separate National Weather Service offices. So, there's been some fallout politically when offices have changed like that. Was there any fallout in the Central Gulf Coast when that happened?
No, there absolutely wasn't. In fact, I remember the experience vividly when we all got here in the summer of '94. Actually, our old warning coordination meteorologist, Gary Beeler, he was the meteorologist in charge in Pensacola, and very well respected in the community with those counties. And our office had a really good rapport, and it was just a natural thing. It just went off without a hitch. And ever since, we've had very strong relationships with the counties they used to serve, and they've been under us for 20-some years, and it couldn't be better, actually.
So you mentioned all the weather that you get there, because you literally do get a little bit of everything, and one of those things is tornadoes. So I noticed that you had a real cool tornado museum on your website. Why don't you talk for a minute about some of the more significant tornadoes that have happened under your watch there at the National Weather Service?
Wow. Yeah. So while dating back to '94, there's been so many events, and I've been part of so many of those. One of the ones that if you want to get a range. One of the first ones was an F2 before we had the EF scale tornado that occurred on an outer rain band with Opal. And, of course, we had the Miller's Ferry event back in 2007. And 95 and 96 were very active years with tornadoes in our Mississippi counties. We had some long track F2s and F3s back during that era. And of course, that leads us up to this season that we've just had, which, since January 9th, when it started kicking in, we've had 15 or 16 weather events in a row that ended about 3 or 4 weeks ago, pretty much nonstop. And it's just been one thing after the other. And it's probably, I would have to say, maybe I'd have to check it back in 1996. But one of probably the most active years we've had since I've been here in 1994.
And of course, one of the tornadoes that was I guess one of the lowlights of this year was the EF3 in Pensacola. Talk about that storm, Jeff.
It's just amazing. 2 EF3s within 8 days in the same county, Escambia County, Florida. First the Century tornado, and then later. Exactly, and then later the one in Pensacola, which went right through the middle of the town. When we conducted the survey, we were able to drive to the beginning location and literally do the entire survey, our team, on foot, walking all the way to the western side of Escambia Bay, because it was so torn up. There's no way you could drive a vehicle in and out of there, but no injuries, no loss of life in either of the EF3s 8 days apart. It was just amazing. One of the things that really amazed me about the Pensacola tornado, especially looking back at how far technology has come, is the fact that people would come up to us, they would recognize us during the survey and tell us that, hey, we really appreciate you. We got your warning. We took action, and it was all the smartphones where people were getting the information, and it was just something. I don't think I've ever really been in a survey where people would run up and say, just a simple thank you and tell you not only that, but that they took action. They received the warning and they took action.
James, I think you remember that storm. We were tracking it here, or at least from Birmingham. It came in off the Gulf, didn't it, Jeff?
Yes.
And we tracked it all the way. We were really worried about Gulf Shores, and then as it moved toward Pensacola, when you see a storm like that of that magnitude right over the city of a major city of that size, that's just really frightening. So
let me point out that Bill just said tracking 2 times, so he.
Oh my gosh, tracking the trackers! Oh my goodness, I'll be on Kevin's radar.
Jeff, we had great concern when that thing moved inland that there might be some, damage at Orange Beach. That was just a horrifying looking signature on radar.
Yes, it was, and when it emerged off the eastern tip of the Chandeleur Islands and began to move northeast, and we could really get a good look at the low levels in the low to mid levels of the mesocyclone. It cycled so many times before it even got close to shore. And yes, I mean when it first went across land, it didn't do anything, but then it cycled one more time as it moved from southern Baldwin County, further to the east northeast, and that's when we saw not only the TVS but the tornado debris signature. And I recall distinctly, we called the emergency manager, and they had been watching it, and told him, we're seeing this, and he said no longer than a few seconds after he hung up the phone bank lit up. They were getting reports of damage all over the place, and so very reliable signature on the radar. People were really aware of the environment going into this event, and especially having had the EF3 tornado in the same county just days earlier, all led to the heightened awareness for this event.
And so talk for a minute, because there's some misconceptions generally about waterspouts and tornadoes. Jeff, talk about the difference between them and when that transition can occur between the two, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, one of the things we've tried to do here, and certainly in my time in Mobile, the team's very committed to this, is pointing the difference, pointing out the difference between the normal summer time waterspout season that we have, where these waterspouts form from a very different process than the supercells over water that produce deadly tornadoes, obviously. We always make a point in our warnings or whatnot during the cold season to point out that this is a deadly tornado over water, to let people know in the warnings that we're not dealing with a normal waterspout type situation. But it's just come from years of education. Obviously, the waterspouts, stretch pre-existing vertical vorticity, and it's pretty much a boundary layer phenomena. They can form from innocuous cumulus clouds, whereas the mesocyclone and tornadogenesis process very different in the cold season.
And you get some biblical type rainfall amounts down there too, Jeff. I mean, being that close to the Gulf of Mexico, massive flooding events in recent years. Talk about some of the bigger ones that have happened recently.
Yes, I mean, we like to, we say it facetiously, but we measure our rainfall in feet here along the central Gulf Coast and not inches. And one of the most incredible events that we had was the April 28, 29 of 2014. It was preconditioned so many times with ground and soil moisture, running, 100 to 200% above normal for weeks going into that event. And, we had several waves of precipitation during the day, and then finally the final kick in the teeth when the boundary that the deep convection was forming on began to lay east-west, and just one particular cell after the other riding down the proverbial train track. And from eastern Mobile County into southern Baldwin and Pensacola, it was just incredible. If you look at some of the videos that were on YouTube, there was complete scouring of cul-de-sacs and subdivisions where people lived. It looked like a scene out of something out west. It was just unbelievable, the raging torrent that occurred from that. And it was compounded as well, especially near the coast, by the onshore flow and the high from coastal flooding effects to high water levels that were preceding the event, and the water wasn't able to go anywhere. So that was another issue altogether on top of that. And that certainly, that particular year, we had quite a few events, none to that magnitude, but some that were almost there locally for some folks. But it just seems like we get our good 5 to 15 events like that a year that are flash flood events that are very solid, not to perhaps that magnitude, but we get it, and that's something that we're always on the lookout for, is that synoptic environment transitioning from one that's producing severe thunderstorms and tornadoes into the flash flood and training type situations. It's something we really have to be aware of with making our forecast and warnings here.
Yeah, I think the state rainfall record belongs to your county warning area, a town called Axis, Alabama, if I remember correctly. I think it was around 17 inches or something. Is that correct?
I think so. I think that's correct.
So obviously those, often are non-tropical systems. Hurricane Danny back in the, I guess, in the 90s was a big event.
1997, 3-day event. Yes.
Yeah, lots of crazy rainfall amounts, but obviously you get heavy rainfall without a tropical event. But you got the Hurricane Awareness Tour coming this week. There has to be a lot of excitement about that. It's actually coming to Mobile, isn't it?
Yes, we are very excited. We've been planning for this since October. It's been a lot of cooperation from our partners, and it will be at Brookley Field, and it will be on Thursday. And we're looking forward to that. It's a great outreach event and wonderful way to start the season off by raising public awareness.
So what all activities are there for the public? What will they be able to do, Jeff?
Okay, so what they'll be able to do is tour the 2 aircraft, the research aircraft, and then the C-130. And there will also be booths that are set up by different vendors. And after they're done touring the aircraft, they can go around to the different booths and talk with anyone from the Weather Enterprise or other businesses that participate in this. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, that's really huge. How many years is it usually between times that it comes to Mobile?
I think it's about every 4 to 6, and then we alternate between Pensacola and Mobile. So, the next time it comes around, most likely it would be over in Pensacola.
All right, so I may need your help. We've got a big National Weather Association Weatherfest in Norfolk, part of the annual meeting, September 10th. So if you see some vendors out there with booths that aren't doing anything on Saturday, September 10th, I need to talk to them.
I'll pass that along.
So, we've had sort of a good run in the U.S. with no major landfalling hurricanes for over a decade now. So what are your thoughts on the upcoming season?
Wow, I guess there's 2 ways to look at it. The first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that we're coming off of one of the strongest El Niños, if not the strongest El Niño ever, and all of the long-term models are forecasting us to go into La Niña, prior to the Cape Verde season's peak. And if that comes to fruition, obviously, that is, the Enzo cycle isn't the only factor playing a role, but it's something where, of course, if you get more storms in the basin or the potential to have more storms, it only takes one. And whether you have that or not, it only takes one, and that's what we're prepared for, from year to year. But we'll just have to see how this pans out. There are other factors like the sea surface temperatures. I understand there's a little bit of an anomaly going on out there right now that wouldn't be typical of a La Nina year. It's a little warm in the northern Atlantic, and that would create rising air and sinking motion down towards the equator. So we'll have to see if that anomaly goes away as we approach the peak of the season. That's one thing. But then if you just look at it from a pure statistical point, and then the return periods of every 6 to 10 years, someone is overdue. And so, it only takes one, and each year that goes by without having a named storm or system, it makes you think that, there are reasons we have a return period of every 5 to 10 years. So you're reminded of that. The last time we had a real test was Katrina.
And the impact of Katrina on the Alabama coast was very substantial. Of course, a lot of the focus was on the southeastern part of Louisiana and the Mississippi coast, but Alabama really had a hard hit too.
Yes, we did. We had 90-mile-an-hour wind gusts as far east as Baldwin County and Mobile Bay, and record surge amounts in Mobile Bay with Katrina. The impacts felt way away from the storm.
Yeah, Brian Peters and I were down there. We wandered out onto the Fort Morgan Peninsula about 11 o'clock that day, and I looked behind us and saw water coming over Highway 180 or 182, whatever it is right there. And hey, Brian, we better turn around.
Yeah.
Luckily we made it back, or we'd have spent the night on the Fort Morgan Peninsula, I think, on that night. But yeah, we recorded a gust well over 90 miles an hour there while we were doing morning live cuts from Gulf Shore. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I think having gotten into the western eye wall of Ivan on the Mobile County side, the tree damage did not seem to be as bad as being on the east side of Katrina. Getting in that eye wall on the west side of Ivan, didn't produce the type of winds in Mobile County that Katrina produced, being that far away from the storm center.
I guess Hurricane Frederick's still the storm that everybody talks about to a great degree, huh?
Yes, and in Mobile County particularly, if you go to Baldwin County or Pensacola, pretty much Ivan is what people talk about now. But certainly for Mobile County, Frederick, is what most people remember and talk about.
So James, I remember you that night. That was about your first week at the TV station in Birmingham at Channel 13. Talk about your experience that night from Mobile.
By the way, Jeff, I got it. There's something wrong with you, man. No human should have a desk that clean back there. I mean, for those that can't see, there's like nothing there. What's up with that?
I must admit, I moved all the junk before it, so it would look decent, halfway decent. It slid over to the side.
I feel, man, this place looks like the Turkey Creek landfill in this room in here. So, my first week on the air in this market in Birmingham was in 1979. It was September, and I was scheduled to start on the air kind of toward the end of the month, but Frederick came along, and they decided they wanted to send me down there. And this was before satellite trucks and internet and all this stuff we have now, and so we went down there, and we had to have a place with a working phone line. The whole thought process was radically different. So instead of us being on the coast, we actually were in a school in Mobile where they had a working phone line. It was an evacuation center. There were a lot of people there. So that was my first storm on television. So building boom that you see was in Orange Beach, Alabama, because of that. Jeff, you weren't born in '79 yet, were you?
Yes, I was. I was born. I was there. I was born in '65. I must admit.
The year of Hurricane Betsy.
Okay, so you.
Yep.
But no, and again, Frederick was a storm that I look back on that and think about that a lot. If we had the equipment, the technology we have today, we could have done such a better job with that. But we did the best we could do. In fact, the next day it was a little bizarre. We had to drive the video back to Birmingham to get it on television. We had no way of uploading it. Channel 10 was on Government Street in downtown Mobile. They were kind of like out of due to wind and waterage, and then we would fly back on a helicopter the next day, and that made it a whole lot easier. But still, it was just a different era. But we've certainly come a long way. And I wanted to ask Jeff, how do you think the people that live on the central Gulf Coast, and I'm talking your CWA, which would be Mobile and Pensacola, some of the Mississippi coast, are they getting complaints, you think, with the lack of activity over the last 10 years?
Hey, James, the last thing you said, can you ask that last part again? You cut out a little bit.
I was just saying, do you think that the people are maybe getting complacent because of the lack of hurricane activity over the last 10 years?
I do not think it's the people that went through Ivan or Katrina or Frederick. I think what it is the coastal population is exploding, and we have people who have moved away and new people moving in, and they've never been through this, and it's been almost 10 years, and that is a real serious issue. It's almost like re-educating all over again. I distinctly, vividly remember the first couple of years after we were under assault in the '04 and '05 seasons, people's awareness to this, and now you're dealing with a whole other round of folks that are moving in, perhaps from other states. No doubt the population is continuing to grow right in the immediate coastal zone, and it is a challenge.
So, Jeff, there's a lot of economic development activity. I'm sorry, James, go ahead. I think James,
go ahead, Bill, go.
It sounded like your Commodore 64 is beginning to give out there a little bit, James. Or maybe my transatlantic my transatlantic cable's been cut over here probably, but a lot of economic development in Mobile, and has that impacted your office at all, Jeff? All the different things that are going on there on the coast?
Yeah, I think so. I know I'm probably maybe jumping the gun here just a little bit, but one of the things is, after the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and the two hurricane seasons that we had in '04, '05, it really transformed, how we serve our customer base and the local citizenry here. With Deepwater, the decision support services that we provided, we dispatched, about probably 5 or 6 people into the incident command center in Mobile, and then we had an in-house group who provided decision support services, and it really transformed, the type of information we delivered, the specificity, and being able to particularly nest non-weather related events that might occur even when an event is going on. So yeah, that made a big difference, for us.
And so the oil spill was a huge event, but there were dire predictions of long-lasting impacts. Are there still impacts along the Gulf Coast today?
I'm not an environmentalist in the sense that I can measure what has happened and speak with any type of authority on that. I can only address the weather and hydrologic concerns. But things seem to me to be on the up and up. They're coming along. I really can't speak to the residual effects of Deepwater.
Yeah, well, it seems like at least it hasn't affected the beautiful beaches of Alabama, Northwest Florida, which I would put up against any in the country for sure.
So beautiful.
That's my homer alert right there, James, for sure. But one event that we remember from last year that we watched because we all love Mobile Bay and what goes on there. Of course, sailing's a big part of that. Talk about the regatta accident last April and how that occurred and how marine forecasts impact your office to a great degree.
Yeah, to begin with, that was such a tragic event. 6 lives were lost. 6 sailors were lost that particular tragic day. It's really kind of a societal type of thing, I think, because there were the event, as far as the event occurring on Saturday, the potential for severe weather, that was heralded days before in the products, and eventually the tornado watch, and then the warnings, the subsequent severe thunderstorm warnings. Now, this particular, if you look at the storm structure of this particular cluster of thunderstorms, it was a distinctive bow echo, and it had a few embedded mesovortices that were in it, but it continued to intensify as it moved out of Jackson County and into Mobile Bay, and you could clearly look at the radar and see the core collapse that occurred right over Mobile Bay as it was moving across. Near hurricane force winds. There were multiple wind stations or observation stations in the marine environment that measured 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts with the passage of the bow. And one of the things, that we try to do, we realize that people have to have time to get back to seek safe harbor. In this particular case, the sailboats were already underway, and it would have taken way beyond the time of a normal warning time frame for the boats to get back to shore. About today, one good thing is, of course, the event was not affected by weather this particular year, but I understand the Coast Guard has worked with some of the event organizers. They've made it where they have to send their location constantly, and they log that location. They know who left and when, whether you came back or not. Life vests, for everyone. So I do know some safety measures have been taken with the event organizers working with the U.S. Coast Guard. We stand ready and willing to support any type of decision support activity for any activity like that in the marine environment, because folks are indeed so vulnerable. They need that time to get back. They need that time to get back and make a decision, perhaps sometimes to not even go. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, Jeff, we talked about lots of deadly, weather phenomenon here tonight. Everything but lightning, which obviously is another huge thing. But there's one phenomenon that has a huge impact on the Gulf Coast and is one of your biggest killers, and it's always surprising to people when I tell them what it is. So why don't you share with the audience what that phenomenon is and some of the things your office is doing to focus on it?
Well, one hint there, Bill. It certainly would not be lightning. It would not be tornadoes, and it would not be flash floods. It would indeed be rip currents. Rip currents are and have been consistently our #1 killer. We have 20 counties. 5 of them are coastal counties, and out of those 5 coastal counties, the #1 killer is produced. It happens year after year. A lot of effort has gone into, and since this goes back to when we modernized in the mid-90s, to have a daily rip current evaluation check sheet, and I can come back to that in a moment with some of the scientific issues. But working with area lifeguards, getting them to call us and give us reports. We do issue a routine forecast now year-round. It used to only be during the traditional beach season. And believe it or not, there are a lot of folks who come and swim in December and January. A lot of Canadians swim down here, particularly at Gulf Shores. And, so there's a need to have that type of information available pretty much on a year-round basis when we feel weather is contributing to rip currents. And, getting to know lifeguards and have them give us reports. We update the early morning forecast around mid-morning to make sure that what we forecast is agreeing with the latest observation. And sometimes it's those mid-morning updates that really catch these events and give people the lead time as they're changing in time.
So we all go to the beach, every year, and the yellow flags are out every single day. Is that just out of the utmost of caution, or is that what ties to your forecasts on a daily basis when the seas are rather calm along the Gulf Coast in July and August?
Yeah, for what as I understand the way the system works, the flag system is not dictated by necessarily the National Weather Service. For what any one Coast Guard sees on a local beach, that's their call on what they think the conditions are. The important thing with that is that when things begin to change, they can change quick, and that we have the relationship with those area lifeguards. They will sometimes call us and tell us things have changed, and they may even call and ask for how things might change that day, or if they see something in the forecast that they don't necessarily agree with what they're seeing. That's important.
So do you use that information sometimes to issue advisories or other statements that impact that, or is that basically off your modeling and forecasting?
Okay, so what will happen on a typical day is we will evaluate the potential for rip currents based on several parameters, and we can get into that in a moment. But basically, that's in the early morning hours. So after that time, we will decide shortly after we make the forecast whether we want to issue, a high surf, or either a high surf advisory or a rip current statement that carries VTEC. That was another important. It carries the VTEC header for rip currents, telling people to stay out of the water in the subsequent follow-up statements and whatnot. So when we go with a high instead of a moderate or a low, we actually have a VTEC out there with a headline.
And so, I'm really fascinated with this, with this process, Jeff, and what you guys do. Talk about the factors that lead into that, and what you're looking for when you forecast a high threat of rip currents.
Well, what we're looking for is an onshore component to the wind. For any, like example, the Gulf Coast, a west to east oriented coastline, we're looking for some component, out of the south, obviously. And then we look for the magnitude of that wind. So you're going to get a contribution as that wind field imparts energy to the water surface. Then you can begin to have onshore wave energy. Plus, that doesn't count the main contributing factor, which is the swell, which may be arriving. And as you know, the longer period the swell is, the more energy that contains. And we also look for the tidal cycle to have the greatest variation between high and low tide. And there's other factors like that sandbar that you might go beyond the coastal zone when you go into the beach and you look at that sandbar. That sandbar can have cuts in it, or it can entice people to go swim out to it. And they're more susceptible to get into a rip current when they see that sandbar. The sandbar itself can force local circulations that create rip currents essentially. And then when weather is not a factor, or there is no swell, still near jetties and groins and piers, local circulations develop in the surf zone that are highly nonlinear. They're not very well modeled. Weather is not a contributing factor, so we really can't predict those kind of things. So people need to be aware that even though weather may not be a factor, we may not have a high, these things are going on all of the time, rip currents are, and to be aware, particularly around groins, jetties, and piers, in the absence of a strong onshore flow and swell that is moving northward.
Now, you talked about the period of the swell, and so explain what that is and how that changes when there's higher wave energy at play.
Okay, so basically the period of the swell, if you were to sit at a stationary location and start and stop a stopwatch with every successive wave crest or wave trough, that would be the period. And usually wind wave, if there is no swell, meaning it's not arriving from another fetch zone, like maybe there was a strong pressure gradient force over the southern Gulf of Mexico, so if you were just looking locally and there was not a pressure gradient force anywhere else, that wave energy will quickly dissipate because it's short period. But that long period swell carries quite a bit of energy with it, and that energy has to be dissipated as it moves from deep water into shallow water. And that constant arrival of those swell sets on shore, and then the backwash out into the Gulf as they recede, and then they just keep coming in and more sets like that. That's where your energy comes from for the rip currents, and it can change quickly.
One of the first books I remember reading as a child about tropical cyclones was about the Last Island hurricane in 1856, and I'll never forget They're talking about, basically what you're talking about, the period of the waves changing on that Friday before the hurricane arrived on Saturday night, and that obviously was the period of the swell increasing, and that always stuck with me. And then that followed in the 1900 hurricane book at Galveston that Eric Larson wrote. So that's a big impact. So when you get tropical cyclones somewhere in the Gulf, that often impacts you with rip currents many hundreds of miles away from the center of the tropical cyclone.
That is correct, with no forcing from the local wind field. In fact, I believe it was 3 or 4 summers ago, we had a situation where it was a beautiful day, not a stitch of wind anywhere on the coast, but there was a system, it seems like it was down in the southern Gulf of Mexico somewhere, and some of that swell energy started arriving on shore, and the period went from 2 or 3 seconds to 7, 8, particularly 9 seconds. And all of a sudden, they just started pulling people out of the water and doing rescues. And this all happened in a matter of 15 or 20 minutes on an otherwise nice day. And another time, Bill, that this happens is if you've been in a south flow for days out ahead of a springtime system, and then you have a cold front passage, even if the winds lay down and go offshore, that swell energy is still moving from the south to the north. And those are some of the most dangerous situations that we've found where they begin to pluck people out of the water when that happens. It's amazing, behind a cold front when this happens sometime in the spring or whatever, when people start going back into the water and you still have enough synoptic forcing to get fronts regularly. We've seen that pattern plenty of times, and another time is after the passage of a tropical cyclone and the local wind field lays down, that swell is still moving from the south to the north, and that's a very dangerous factor, particularly combined with an outgoing tide and high tidal ranges.
Now, it seems like when I was reading the research on on developing a rip current index and talking to you about it several weeks ago, it struck me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a smaller intertidal range led to a bigger rip current threat. Is that right, wrong, or am I just off base there?
Yeah, usually we look for the higher range. We look more closer to what we call the spring tide cycle, where there's a range between the low tide and the high tide that's the greatest, because that's when the current has to run the fastest to meet those points between the low and eventually the high tide. So when that interacts with swell that's coming in, that's when it's of particular concern. Usually in the neap tide, that actually, when there's very little range between the high and low, that's a situation for rip currents where it can actually negate rip current formation.
So do you consider social impacts at all when you make advisories or forecasts? Does that enter into it, Jeff?
Absolutely. Yes. If we're on the fence, the data that we have are very empirical data. Basically, we're taking, checklists, trying to make them work for our area, trying to, reevaluate, trying to verify what's going on. And it's a very, very empirical type of situation. So it's something that we always try to learn from. And I'll probably just leave that at that, unless you have another question about it.
So like if you have a holiday like Labor Day or Memorial Day, does that increase your awareness, or maybe take it up a tick? Because a lot of those visitors, or maybe there are a lot more visitors at the Gulf Coast than would normally be there.
Oh, absolutely. Good point. If it's on the fence, given the empirical nature of our evaluation of this, we have no problem bumping that up one category. And I don't feel like at all, based on my experience with this, that it's falsely alarming people or warning people, just because out of respect for the fact that it can change so quickly and we don't know everything there is to know about it. So if it's July 4th or Memorial Day and I'm 0.1 points away from a a high risk or a moderate risk or a low risk or a moderate risk, I have no problem bumping it up to the next category. None of us do. And oftentimes we're right. We're right as many times as we're wrong about it. So it's just trying to tell you something, that and looking at the overall trend of the way it's moving, what's been happening the last few model cycles with everything, and looking at that trend is important.
So on the VTEC strings that you write for a rip current statement or rip current advisory, are those polygon based, or are they simply zone based for the coastal zone?
Yeah, there are no polygons. Yeah, it's zone based. It is zone based. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. So, talk to me, for a minute. You mentioned, the shape of the coast or the alignment of the coast has an important impact too. If you're straight east-west, you're more susceptible, I guess, to a southerly flow, whereas you move over toward Bay County and the eastern part of the Florida Panhandle, they're facing more northwest-southeast. Talk about the impact of that.
Yes, I mean, the goal would be, if you're evaluating, the swell arrival or the synoptic wind field itself minus, swell arrival from another fetch region that's well to the south. The question is how orthogonal is it to the coastline? So the more that it's orthogonal, that's where you greatly magnify the rip current threat for both the swell and the wind field.
We rely heavily on numerical weather prediction, obviously, as meteorologists, and get a lot of information from that as to, beginning to discern what the atmosphere is going to do. But you have the same thing when it comes to the Gulf and to the oceans all around the world, I guess, too. But talk about that wave prediction system and then the local models that you're running that help you to, fine-tune your forecasts.
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's just such a breakthrough. We've had this now for 5-6 years or so. Basically, you've heard of the coupled models where the wind field from the large-scale models like the GFS, it imparts a stress or momentum on the ocean surface. So these coupled models, you can take subdomains out of them and go all the way down. In scale. So what happens is we're able to take these deep water wave models. They don't work near shore, and that's the key. We're able to take them and use a shallow water wave model, which uses a different set of equations that dissipates wave energy, as it moves in. And it's much more computationally intensive. So we take something like the WNA, we use that as the outer domain, and then we downscale that with what's called the wave prediction system. Used to be called SWAN, now it's called the wave prediction system, and we just basically essentially downscale that. We use which is really neat, because the forecasters pour all of their heart and soul into the wind grids and all of the coastal interactions between the land and the ocean, and those are the winds that drive the wind field that goes into the nearshore wave model. Now the swell, we have little windows in the domain that allows swell to come in from the deep water models into the other models, so it can begin to interact with the local wind field, and we can develop the final composite wave height, period, etc. And that's what you'll usually see on the front of all of the websites of the coastal offices from its output from the NWPS. We can also use the swell to get the deep water wave and then eventually the shallow water wave, and we can compare it to like our buoys offshore, and we have a way to predict breaker heights in the surf zone, because the breaker height is not the same as the deep water wave that's just offshore. Two separate things. So the beauty of that is we can take the SWAN output or the NWPS output, and we can take it from there to predict breaker heights, which is another helpful thing, because many days we'll see high surf coming in sets, and that would require a high surf advisory. You may or may not be under a high rip current risk. A lot of times they're concurrent, but not always.
So there is a difference between the two.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
now, generally, if the waves are crashing with the frequency on shore where the runoff can't go all the way back down before another wave crashes, that's a problem where obviously rip currents can form, but it just depends on how they're spaced apart and the magnitude of the incoming wave energy with regard to the period.
So now, and this is a lot of technical weather geekiness here, but a lot of our audience and a lot of audience all over the country goes to the beach, and this really affects not only the Gulf Coast but the East Coast of the United States too, and I'm sure maybe to a lesser extent the West Coast. But talk about some of the social media aspects of what you're doing and how you guys are getting the word out, sort of like our severe weather awareness here in tornado-prone areas of the state, in the country. Talk about how you're, attacking this problem, from a preparedness and an awareness standpoint.
Sure. Well, one of the things, and I told you we'd be probably getting into this, is the fact that most of the deaths that we average about 5 per year since 1996. Most of the deaths we have, about 80% of them estimated, are from folks that are from out of town. So that's an educational effort that is underway, and we have Rip Current Awareness Weeks throughout the year where we continually, and we actually have partnered with inland offices to get the message out in their area, say, hey, if you're planning on going to the beach, you might want to pay attention to this, go to this weather service office's website, and so forth. And then once we have a threat day that we've identified, we hit that very hard on our social media as well as with a headline on our webpage. And that's when we really feel like we're getting the word out and really reaching the people.
Well, that's really exciting. You've even gone to the extent of using billboards, haven't you?
We have. In fact, this past spring break, something that I've never seen happen before, but it was a very high rip current risk, and we were able to see the synoptic pattern several days out. And we knew that it was going to be a problem because it was going to coincide with maximum spring breaker time, so to speak. And we partnered with the Baldwin County Emergency Management, and they put this information up on all north-facing billboards so people could see it as they headed off to the beach, to know that even before they arrived in their hotel rooms that this was a situation and a problem.
So obviously that's we talk about unsurvivable tornadoes from time to time, because we have safety rules. But if you're caught in a rip current, there are certain safety things that you can do. But are there just some that are unsurvivable, Jeff?
Well, I guess there are. I've seen that these things they've had speeds that have been measured that are faster than what an Olympic swimmer can swim at. So if you can imagine your average person getting caught in a rip current, the first thing they do is they freak out. And I guess that would be a question where it's relative. If a person remained calm and tried to swim along the shore instead of against the current, but there's so many factors biologically, I think, that factor into that for any one particular person. But I would say that the answer to that question in general is a resounding yes, because it would be relative to the person who is caught in it.
So the idea is to stay out of the water when those red flags are flying along the Gulf Coast, for sure.
Absolutely.
So Jeff, you got a great team there at Mobile. Talk about them for a minute, and I'm sure you want to brag on them a little bit, and anything else you guys are working on.
Yes, our team is. They really, really are a a radar savvy team. They love synoptics. They're excited about serving the customer. They work very well together. One good thing about Mobile is that we always seem to rise to the occasion when we're faced with an adversary weather event, if you will. And, you know, because I think it's the passion and the excitement that everybody here has, you know, for the weather. Most people come from strong radar backgrounds, and they just love what they do. And they actually relish in the fact that pretty much everything is about the mesoscale here, and you know they really have to be on their toes, whether it's a tornado watch in the first period followed by winter weather in our northern zones 2 or 3 periods later, and people just seem to feast on that, and we truly have feast or famine. People have really branched out and embraced the whole social media thing with reaching out, because I think everybody realizes, not only in my office but across the Weather Service, we could have the best forecast in the world, but the bottom line is, if the message doesn't get out, you know, it's going to be all for naught. So.
All right, so Bill asked the easy questions. I'm the hard question guy. This is a very typical, Jeff, of the stuff I get, and I mean I get it all the time. But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Weather Service offices there, Mobile, Birmingham, and Jackson have gone to these impact graphics that differ from, and I understand these are impact graphics and SPC, they're doing forecast graphics, but nonetheless, this is a classic example of what I get. And the key word in this tweet that I'm showing for those listening, this was back on March 31st as a severe weather setup was in progress. The key word is confusing. The tweet says updates posted at about the same time, but one says elevated risk extends all the way to Auburn, one doesn't. And this, to me, is just not working. Jeff, could you comment on the discrepancies between the graphics that you're producing and the graphics coming from the Storm Prediction Center?
Yeah, this is where you can say your internet went out, Jeff. This is the part where you can do it.
Or as I heard on one of the past segments, do I have to answer this? So no, I actually like to think more being a situation where we're adding our local granularity in space and time. In fact, one of the graphics, you know, we work hand in hand with the Storm Prediction Center, you know, but sometimes they're, you know, particularly right leading into the event. Like if you showed that graphic, I believe from I believe it was the February 23rd. You recall that the moderate risk got pulled away from the coast prior to the EF3 happening. So, I mean, it goes both ways. You know, it is all about being on the same page. We're going to take a look in this off season, and we've talked to the Storm Prediction Center, have a very good relationship with them and with the management there, and we're going to talk about how we can better get on the same page and accomplish the same mission. But, you know, there will be times when, you know, we feel, and you prefaced it, it's about impacts. And that's what it's absolutely about for us. But, you know, I want to reach out to the offices around me and the Storm Prediction Center in the off season and find out, you know, what can be done about this particular situation. I can understand on one hand there's confusion, but on the other hand, WFO has local expertise. People have looked at things for years, and you know sometimes the forecaster closest to the situation can add granularity in space and time.
Right, and again, you know, this is hard, and I should turn the light on TV people first. It's a disaster in the television business. You'll go into one market, and the colors are different, the terms are different, the graphics are different, the call to action is different. It is the most mass confusion pile of mess I've ever seen in some places. So we've got our own problems, but I'll say this. I came back from Oklahoma last year, and we had a local meeting with the chief meteorologist only, the MIC, and the WCM here. and we ironed some things out in private. Everybody's got to check their ego at the door, and that's one of the problems we have in this business. You know, everybody, well, my way's better than their way, and we're smarter than they are. Well, there's no humility in this business, and we checked the egos, we checked all this stuff, and we got some things accomplished. We're all using the same colors. We're all using the same call to action. We're working on, you know, some of these issues. We still can't use the Weather Service graphics because of some issues that would take too long to explain here, but it's all being worked on. So my hope is that we can just sit down and talk about it. I know that Rich, when I was down there with you guys a couple of months ago at USA, Rich was a little surprised, Rich Thompson of SPC, when he saw the graphics products coming out of Jackson, Mobile, and Birmingham. But I think the problem we have, and I've said this before, we sit around these weather conferences and we do what we think is best for us, and we don't go to the Walmarts and the Targets where real people are and just listen to them. And I will tell you, as one guy that has a gazillion followers on social media, they all come griping to me, which is fine, and I'm glad they do, but confusion is a word I hear over and over and over and over, and we know that confusion can lead to people not doing anything and the message becoming muddy and not very clear. So all I'm hoping is that we can get together, Jeff, and I get so discouraged. But then again, I know there are a lot of people that want to do this. But I'll say this again, and let me just say one more thing. We have to take a quick break. What you've done with social media is just tremendous. How do you have any extra staff members with your social media? Because Mobile has become, to me, one of the premier offices in the country with communicating with the public. You guys do a wonderful job.
Well, one of the things we did, James, was we actually formed a social media desk. And, you know, we, even on quiet nights, we try to tweet something or put something on Facebook to, you know, continue to indicate our presence. But, you know, it's just a matter of delegating the duties and taking what you have and realizing that, you know, if you can have the best of forecast or warning, but if you don't get that information out there, you know, it's all for naught, you know, as I said earlier. And it, again, in our operations, we took a very serious introspective look about a year and a half ago, and ever since then, people have rallied around that, and they're committed to the cause of getting the message out on social media.
And I think your attention to that has brought success with the number of followers that you have and the ability to reach people. And again, you know, this is not knocking some other offices, but some just do it better. And that whole system that you put in is working very well. It's a marvelous social media communication line that you have with your people in your territory, in your CWA. So attaboy. But if you can, Jeff, hang on for a few more minutes here. We got to roll a recorded segment by Tony Rice, and we're going to come back, Jeff, and you got to come up with a pick of the week, okay? This can be anything related to weather, anything from a website to equipment to hardware. So just think of one. We're going to take a quick break for Tony Rice and the Astronomy Report, and we will be right back.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
This Saturday, the moon will be fully illuminated at 21:16 UTC or 5:16 p.m. Eastern Time. This full moon is also known as a blue moon. Don't expect a change in the moon's color, though. The term refers to the third of 4 full moons to fall within a season. These seasons, of course, start and end with the solstices and equinoxes. That's the old farmer's almanac of the term blue moon, though. More modern usage for the term is any full moon which is the second to fall within a single calendar month. This is thanks to a mistake in Sky and Telescope magazine back in March of 1946. Both definitions satisfy the requirement of 13 full moons in a calendar year, however. If you do the math, on average 3.1 full moons occur within each season. When you consider that lunation, or the average time from full moon to full moon, lasts 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, that's just slightly less than 1/3 the length of a season. Blue moons occur once about every 2.7 years as a result. If you miss this weekend's blue moon, well, first, you aren't missing much. It's the worst time to observe pretty much anything in the sky. This is because the moon is the second brightest object, second only to the sun itself. It's also a rotten time to observe the moon itself, because that full-on light leaves little or no shadow. This shows far less detail than during pretty much any other phase. The next blue moon will be May 18th, 2019. Our next calendrical lunar occurrence will be the black moons of October 2016, occurring on the 1st and the 30th. Black moons are the new moons that occur during the same calendar month. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather fall is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather fall is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather fall is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
So we got 2 guys in Alabama and 1 guy on the island of Bermuda. So, Bill, how's the weather?
It's been great. I mean, it rained perfectly. It rained Saturday night, early Sunday morning, but it was like, watching, this clearing line move across the island has been beautiful the rest of the time. It's been middle to upper 70s every day, 70 to 71 at night. Dew points around 68, 69 degrees. It's just perfect.
Now you don't go out there like Brian Peters wearing a tank top, Bermuda shorts, black dress shoes, and black socks, do you?
Brian would fit in perfectly here, because the period, what everybody wears, now they technically don't do it till May 24th, but I've seen a lot of tourists that are in their Bermuda shorts and black socks and dress shoes, the whole 9 yards. But not me. I've been very conscious of my dress because I didn't want to be accused of being Brian Peters over here, James.
Okay. Well, we're coming up. Really, the continental United States is kind of, I'd say, cooler than average now, looking at the numbers, and saw that Denver was sitting at like 42 at mid-afternoon today, and I saw some snow back in the mountains. Had a big snow in Maine this morning. The National Weather Service in Caribou had 3.5 inches of snow today. The biggest amount for so late in the season. The pictures were just stunning, and being a snow lover guy, this is the last grasp, last chance. I mean, the last dying breath of the winter of 2015-16. And then we had more severe weather. I saw a couple of tornado shots coming out of the far northern Texas Panhandle tonight. Saw some large hail coming out of Amarillo. Looks like the main issues will stay again. Maybe tomorrow, Texas, places like that. So,
did y'all see that tornado watch embedded in the middle of that severe thunderstorm watch in the Panhandle tonight? I thought that was unusual.
I thought that was so interesting too. It kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, there were counties that were under both watches at one time, I think.
Interesting.
Hey, Aubrey's here, so I tell you what, Aubrey, have you got an email to read? Because if you do,
well, all I do is appear, and you make me work.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Listen, Aubrey, and for those that don't know, Aubrey does television. And the problem with Aubrey, she's got 2 newscasts within this show. She's got one at 10 o'clock Eastern, one at 11 o'clock Eastern. So she kind of has to bounce back and forth. So whenever I see Aubrey here, I just want to give her the mic, give her the floor. So the floor belongs to you. You can read email, sing, do whatever you want to do.
All I do is just appear on the wall. I don't really do any work. All I do is show up and magically appear. All right, so we have some email. I'm going to tilt this to the side so I can read it. We have a listener survey response from Lindsay. Lindsay is from Illinois. She searched for weather into the podcast app because she was hoping to find a podcast dedicated to meteorology. Well, Lindsay, you are in the right spot. Thanks for finding us. We appreciate you watching. Aaron Graves had a show suggestion, which also this was Rick Smith answered some of his questions about the EF scale and radar data and the Dow data. So thank you, Aaron, for sending that in to us. We also got a future discussion, a possible show from Peter Atkinson. Maybe in a future show you might want to talk about the various ways to stay weather-wise. Of course, our feeling on those computer-generated apps and the siren. Basically severe weather and what exactly people would need to do to stay weather-wise. So thank you for that show suggestion. We appreciate that. And then we actually got several emails and a couple of tweets on the incident from Los Angeles.
Yes, I was hoping you would comment on this because out of everybody on this show, you are the one qualified to discuss this. So explain what happened for those that don't know.
So what happened was this meteorologist was on air and something appeared and she said, "What? You want me to put on what?" She was wearing a dress, spaghetti strap, looked kind of like a cocktail dress, and someone said off camera while they were on the air that they were getting emails and she needed to put on a sweater in the middle of the broadcast.
Well, so my question is, who told somebody to go give her a sweater in the middle of the weathercast? I mean, was this management or just some guy in the studio?
I believe it was a co-anchor, and I'm not sure who was watching the emails, but that person was maybe directed. And a couple of articles. Angela Fritz wrote an article about it in the New York Times also looks like they wrote an article about it. When this came out, my first thought was, I did training with Chili's for 10 years. I traveled for 7. And the number one rule, if you are a leader, a trainer, or a boss, or above anyone in a work environment, you never ever discredit a coworker, another employee, an intern, or a trainee in front of anyone else. That's rule number 1. So that was my first thought when I saw this. Second, and I think a lot of people thought that it was staged.
Oh, really?
This was apparently the second wardrobe faux pas for this chosen person. Which either way, and it looks like from the article that came out about it, it was a joke. They joke with each other on air, and she says it was not sexism.
I agree. I think it's a scam. I think it's a setup. So look, they got all this publicity. We're talking about them on WeatherBrains, New York Times. Everybody's talking about it. I agree. I think the whole thing's a scam.
Well, the second thing is this is from L.A. I mean, who is conservative on air in L.A.? I mean, let's just be honest. So
I don't know anything about the weather market there. I just don't. I was there last summer, but I just don't think much about it. So we ought to get somebody from Los Angeles on the show and talk about it. Maybe she'll come on the show.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But either, it was just, a lot of people, obviously came to her defense, which is obviously good because, I mean, someone discrediting anyone else blatantly on air in front of viewers or anything it just has no business. She said it was a joke. They were just poking fun at each other and stuff, which is fine. But underlying issue is, never ever discredit anyone else in front of.
Yeah, I have not watched it. I need to sit down and watch that replay. Maybe we'll put a link, producer JP, up on the show notes with that thing. So very interesting. All right, any more email? Are we good?
We are good. So if you have an email, a question, a show suggestion, or a guest that you would like to have us on, just send us an email at weatherbrains.com. Email at weatherbrains.com. We love to hear your suggestions and your thoughts about the show.
By the way, we should congratulate friend of the show, Ginger Z. While we've been talking, she is now in the finals of Dancing with the Stars. Wow.
Congratulations, Ginger.
And they did her personal story tonight, and I happened to be on. I was very distracted because all these people. Hey, did you know you were on Dancing with the Stars? Hey, man, you were on Dancing with the Stars. So I never meet people. This is why now I know why people get so mad when we cut that show off. But wouldn't it be funny if I had to cut off the Dancing with the Stars episode that I was on?
That would be ironic.
That would be. But no, Ginger, and the thing I said on the show on ABC tonight, I said the one thing about her, she understands this, is it's her work ethic. And on that show, she will work harder than anybody else. She might not be the greatest dancer. She might be, but she might not be. But she will work harder than anybody else, and that hard work ethic is paid off. And again, Aubrey, how in the world do you do this? I mean, you think about this. So she does the dancing show in Los Angeles. She does the weather in New York on Good Morning America. She's a new mom. How do you do this?
I have no idea. I am not a mom, not planning to be a mom. I have a bear and a husband and a brother, and I can barely keep up with that and work. So honestly, I mean, more power to her and all the other moms out there who can juggle all that, because I don't know how they make time, and I'm assuming she doesn't sleep or eat or do anything else, because when would you have time? I mean, I can't imagine. So kudos to her and big props for her for all that she's done. In addition to, you got to think, sitting on a plane, flying back and forth across the country weekly.
Yeah, I don't sleep, but hey, I don't travel. I mean, I drive to these school visits. I might travel 2 hours or 3 hours, but I don't have to go to an airport. Security, weird people, delays. Goodness, flying wears me out. Bill flies all over the place, but she's doing this all the time. It's just amazing. I mean, she needs like a month off come June once this rating book is over. Anyway, I'll try and pull up some of the old Ginger Z pictures, and she gave me full clearance to allow any of these to be used. I checked off with her because sometimes you don't want your college pictures being used. But the funniest Ginger Z episode for us that summer, she was here 16 years ago. This was in the summer of 2000. At the end of this year, we took all the interns to Dreamland, and that is a rib joint. And Ginger's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they don't have rib joints there. And they put this big slab of ribs, and she kind of looked at it like, well, what do you do? I mean, there's no napkins or forks or anything. What do you do here? There was a roll of paper towels and a slab of ribs and some white bread. And I just said, Ginger Z, just suck the meat off the bone. Just get in there and get it. So I've got all kind of pictures from Dreamland, but we'll post some of those later. In fact, she posted some on her Instagram feed. But the fact is, we are short-staffed, and I've got to do television tonight, and I'm sure I'm the lead story for some reason. So we're going to go around the horn and do picks of the week. This can be anything related to weather, and mine, it is the University of Arizona Atmospheric Sciences page. Most people have no idea that they have a program there or data there, and it's actually some pretty good graphics. So. And again, the web links will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com, thanks to producer JP this week. Aubrey, what's your pick of the week?
Mine is the image and the explanation from Yellowstone National Park on their Facebook page about the baby bison that was put into a car because humans thought that the bison was in danger of being culled. So they confirm the story, and they give an explanation of why it had to be euthanized. So bottom line, don't mess with nature.
Don't mess with nature. Yeah, all right. So, Jeff, we've stalled as long as we can. It is time now for that moment in time where you give us a pick of the week.
Okay, it would be remiss of me, James, not to pick the Hurricane Awareness Tour in Mobile, Alabama this coming Thursday. With all the work that went into it, kudos to the staff. It's going to be a great time. We're going to have fun interacting with the public, and I just can't wait.
And again, this I would assume you've got all the details on the Weather Service Mobile website.
Yes, correct.
And we'll provide a link to that. Sure. But I saw that on Twitter today, and we'll be sure and spread that news across social media as best we can. But
hey, Jeff, before we go, let me interrupt and just say I don't know if it's still there, but I opened the Chili's in Mobile, the new one that opened about 10, 12 years ago.
Okay.
Something about that. But yeah, I opened that store.
Pre or post Katrina, Aubrey?
Yeah, it was. Yep. Okay. It was pre.
All right.
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, Bill Murray, what's your pick of the week?
Yeah, mine's the comment module on Rip Current Index, James, which is really fascinating if you're following this topic that we've been talking about tonight. And lots of great modules on Comet, obviously, but this is a fascinating one if you study the coastal zone, or if you just are interested in the weather and travel to the beach. So real fun having Jeff on tonight. Jeff, thanks for staying up late, because I know you have to get up early in the morning.
No problem. We appreciate it, and thank you for the invitation.
And please, next time, don't have the desk that clean. I feel bad every time I see you.
Okay, I'll give you the real desk.
Yeah, there you go. And, all right. Next week, James, we'll have Jason Samenow and Leslie Henderson Chapman from Flash. I'm looking forward to that show, too.
Oh, that'll be a ton of fun. That's awesome. Well, listen, we got to tie this thing up, put a bow on it, because I've got to go do some television. We typically do this show every Monday night at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. We do have a video version You can watch it live at live.bigbrainsmedia.com or YouTube or a million different ways. We know most of you listen to this show, and we thank you for doing that. If you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. You send it to that address, we all get it. Aubrey will read them on the air. And our social media accounts are on the website, weatherbrains.com as well. If by chance you listen by iTunes, we love it when people give iTunes comments. Good, bad, we don't care. Love us, hate us, just let us know. That one of these days we're going to be the featured podcast on iTunes. I just feel that. I have a funny feeling in my bones. But on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks a lot for listening. Have a wonderful week, and God bless.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Jeff, thank you. Appreciate you taking all the time to spend with us tonight. You were great. Thank you.
Not a problem. Be happy to do it again. Thank you.
All right. Thanks to everybody. All have a good week. Bye-bye.
Good rest of the week.
Bye-bye.